I've always thought that any shower that's in your house should have some sort of access panel behind it. However, I don't like the look because most of them are just plastic panels like this that don't really look that good, and usually they're just painted over. So I decided that I was gonna make my very own access panel by using 1x4s and shiplap. So let me show you guys how to get a project like this done. So when it comes to completing a project like this, you're gonna need a few items. First and foremost, you're gonna need some 1x4s and some shiplap. I think we have some scrap lying around, so I'm just gonna reuse that from previous projects. You're also gonna need some Lexel or some sort of construction adhesive or glue. You're also gonna need a pocket hole system, as this will allow your boards to be nice, flush, and tight together. And lastly, don't forget about some miscellaneous hand tools and a drill. Now that we know our material, we need to make our measurements. Currently, I have my measurements right here, all mapped out. I made two different measurements. I have the opening, which is 12 inches wide by 20.5 inches long. Then I have another measurement, which is my drywall that is roughed up around the sides that I don't really want to cut out. And that's 24.5 inches tall by 16.5 inches wide. But in all reality, when you're doing this, you will just need to make one measurement, which is the opening of the hole. So now that we know our measurements, let's start making our cuts. So I'm gonna make my board that goes horizontally 17.5 inches long. Now all I'm going to do with the second board is line it up and put my speed square on it so I know they're the same exact length. Set these boards aside and measure your boards that go up and down. I'm going to measure my boards that go up and down 25.5 inches long. Now we need to make two 45-degree angle cuts on each board. I got my first set of cuts done for the long board. I got two 45 degrees like this. Now I'm just going to match it up to do the other side. So I got my two long boards. I'm just gonna put them together and make sure that they're the same length. Both the same length, so now I gotta cut the shorter pieces. I got my two horizontal pieces cut, line them up again, and they match up nice. Before we get too crazy, we wanna make sure we lay out all our wood right here and make sure that we have the correct measurements and that we have the correct angles as well. So everything makes a nice picture frame. The angles line up good. Now let's measure real quick. So we want to make sure that the shiplap's going to be no wider than 12 inches. So let's measure. That's perfect. The shiplap will have about ½ inch on both sides of the boards to mount to that. And lengthwise, we're looking good as well. Now outside width, again, I just want to measure that. We're greater than 16.5 inches and we're longer than 24.5 inches. So now let's put all this wood together. So once you have your jig all set up, you want to make sure you line your wood up correctly. So you're going to take it and slide it all the way to the very edge so that a hole goes here and a hole goes here. Now drill 2 holes on each side of your miters. So it's going to look just like this. Now go to the other side of this board and do the same thing. Now you want to take the other board that's the same length as this and repeat the same process. So now you can take your boards and start mounting them together. To do my joints, I like to use wood glue. Put a liberal coat on with the wood glue. I also like to have a clamp ready. You want to line up your joints as best as you can. Take your screw and screw it in. Now we want to do the other side. Now remember, these pocket hole screws are more so to just hold the wood in place while the wood glue is drying. Yes, it is a little bit structural. However, the wood glue is going to do most of the heavy lifting. Keep repeating the same process. One more side. So we got a nice picture frame right now. Currently there is a slight warp. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but if I lay it on this flat bench, it teeters a bit. We should be able to correct that using the shiplap. If not, I'm using a French cleat system on the back, which should also flatten it against the wall. Now that this picture frame's done, let's move on to putting the shiplap on. So when it comes to installing the shiplap, I'm gonna do it horizontally. I think it's gonna look better and make it a little easier for myself. Then again, I got scrap pieces of shiplap, so I just need to make my appropriate measurements. And I also want to say, before I get too crazy, I want to lay this out and just see how that style is going to look as well. So this is how it's going to look. You're going to see 3 vertical lines and it's going to be recessed like so. Personally, I like how this looks. If you don't, there are other designs you can do internally. So the opening I have is 12 inches, so I just want to go slightly under 12 inches. I'll do 11 7/8 and make all my cuts. Make my first cut with this board and then use this board as a scribe. So now that I got my wood cut, I need to start laying it out on the back. And to mount all this MDF wood to these boards, I'm gonna use Lexel. So putting this first board on is crucial. It needs to be level or else all of them are just gonna look crooked on there. And the way to make sure that it's straight is measure both sides. I'm gonna mark both edges at 8 inches. I'll take my pin nailer and nail it on. I'm gonna go back to this side and double check. We're right at 8 inches, right at 8 inches. We got the first one on, now let's mount the rest. I'm gonna make sure I put a little bit of construction adhesive right on the back here. Same process here, except now that it's level, you don't need to worry about leveling it. Flip it back over and take off any of that excess Lexel. Keep going with the process. We're on to the last board now, so we also are gonna have to make a cut at the top so it's not sticking off too far. I made my mark, now I'm gonna cut it horizontal. Cuts made, now let's mount the last board. Now, if you don't have a pin nailer, you could use any sort of screws or nails. I just think this is the easiest and most efficient way to mount these boards. So here's the rough product. I could have centered the lines a little better. I did not think of that. I think this looks perfectly fine. It just gives a little bit more character. Now, before we get too crazy with anything else, let's sand down these seams so they're nice and flush. So now that everything's nice and flush and smooth, we're gonna fill in the gaps and cracks with caulk. Now remember, this is only an access panel, however, you still want it to look nice. Filling in these gaps and cracks, in my opinion, really can make a difference. So everything's sealed up pretty good right now. I'm gonna let that caulk dry and we'll come back and paint it. So before I paint this, I'm actually gonna put the French cleat system on it, so let's do that. So in order to do that, you need to put 2 pieces of wood on the back here with a 45-degree angle on it, which will then catch the other piece of wood that's mounted to the wall with another 45-degree angle on. So now I got my table saw out and I'm 45-degree beveled like this. I'm just gonna run these pieces of wood down the saw to give it that nice 45-degree angle on this edge. So I got my 45s cut out. One's gonna go on the back of this, one's gonna go to the wall, and they're just gonna mesh together just like so. So all we're gonna do to mount these 45-degree French cleats is put some Lexel down and then pin nail it. While you're doing this, you'll also wanna make sure that it is level. I'm gonna take the second one and put it right here. You also wanna make sure when you're doing this that you don't put it too low, since this will need to get mounted to ones that are the same width as the 1x4s. All right, so these cleats are mounted, and now what's gonna happen is we're gonna mount these cleats to the studs, and it's gonna slide in just like that. We also need to drill pocket holes in these French cleats so we can mount them to the studs. You're gonna make sure you drill the pocket holes on the longer side of this piece. Pocket holes are drilled, let's go up and install it. So we're upstairs now and I need to make a few modifications to make these cleats fit. So now that we have some stuff out of the way, we're gonna measure to put our first cleat in. So we wanna go 3.5 inches from the top because that's how long the piece of wood is. I don't have a marker right now, so I'm just gonna use this. So we're gonna take our first cleat, we got our mark. Now friction's just holding it right now, but I'm gonna test it out. So as you can see, it's being held up in there right now. Check level, it's pretty level right now. So I'm gonna leave that where it is and mount it. So the first one's mounted nice and solid. I need to remount my shower valve in the back here. So when it comes to the bottom cleat, you gotta measure from the top one to the bottom one. And then you gotta translate that from the top one here to the bottom one there. We're gonna take your tape measure, measure from the top of here to the bottom of there. So we're looking at 9 5/8. So we're gonna measure from the top of this one to the top of the other one. We're doing 9 5/8 like I said. All right, so put the top to where we measured Screw it in. Now the moment of truth. Let's see if we measured right. It's mounted, fits good. Now we just need to paint it. We're back out in the garage now. Let's slap a coat of paint on it. I'm gonna come back in a little bit and put a second coat on. First coat's dry, now let's put the second coat of paint on. Second coat's applied, now let's let it dry overnight and hang it up tomorrow. So it's the next day, the paint's all dry, and now all we need to do is install the access panel. Take your access panel, slide it in the hole, slide it down. And that's it, guys. If you ever need to make access to anything behind this wall, all you need to do is simply lift up, and it's out of the way, and then you can work on stuff. And then all you need to do to put it back is slap it back in. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot as I did through this whole process. If there's any recommendations on something I could have done different or to make this system better, let me know in the comments down below and I'll try it next time. Any products that I used to build this will be listed down in the description below, so check those out, and they are affiliate links and help the channel out as well. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and have a good rest of your day.